Shalom, shalom, Israel. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom to all the men and women who are rehearsing the righteous acts day in and day out. Shalom to you. Before we get started, I want to give all praises, all glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rahakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of GMS who are preaching and teaching this truth with humility and sincerity across the four corners of the world to so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Indigenous of the America, and the speckled bird that are amongst those other nations that look like those from those other nations, but their lineage goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as well. Okay, so today's video, I really don't have the title yet for this lesson, but it is concerning so-called America. Who discovered so-called America is different from who inhabited America first. Those are two different questions with two different answers. Okay? So, as you can see here, I pulled up an AI overview of the Phoenicians. Who were the Phoenicians? The seafaring people, right? An ancient civilization known for their seafaring and trading prowess, particularly around the Mediterranean Sea from around 1500 to 300 BC. They were not a unified nation, but rather a collection of independent city-states like Tyre and Sidon. Okay? So, who were these seafaring people? As you got done reading, there was an independent city-states from Tyre and Sidon. So, according to scripture, Tyre and Sidon, we could prove that were the seafaring people. Okay, let's continue reading here. Sharing a common culture and language, their expertise in shipbuilding and navigation allowed them to establish extensive trade networks and colonies across the Mediterranean, impacting development of numerous cultures. Okay, they were impacting development of numerous cultures. One of the cultures that they helped develop was the nation of Israel, Yasharallah, right? In particular, when King Solomon was reigning, okay? And we'll be able to prove that here in a second. But as we just got done reading, the true Phoenicians were from Tyre and Sidon, okay? So we know, according to biblical scripture, Tyre and Sidon are descend from Hamites, okay? So-called Africans, right? We'll go there in a second, but we're going to start off here in 2 Chronicles 8:18. And Hiram sent him by the hands of his servants ships, right? Hiram, let's see who Hiram is. Hiram is a king, all right? The Strong's Hebrew transliteration, Hiram, noble born, right? Let's go to the letter B, king of Tyre, allied with David and Solomon. Okay, he allied with David and Solomon. He was a servant, a slave. And the word slave has been corrupted and perverted by the Edomites, okay? Because if you read in the book of Leviticus, slavery was just another word for indentured servant or servant, right? But there was laws and rules. That's another topic for another day. But they were servant slaves of David and Solomon, right? And let's see if we see some more Strong's definitions here. The name is Okay. That's what it means to be a nobleman, a free-born man, Hiram. Okay. So that's the Hebrews transliteration, right? The king of Tyre. He was the king of Tyre, and we know that Tyre goes back to being Canaanites, and Canaanites go back to Ham. Okay, let's continue reading here. And Hiram sent him by the hands of his servants ships. Okay, so Hiram had his servants, other fellow Canaanites, right? And servants that had knowledge of the sea. And they went with the servants of Solomon to Ophir, right? So not only did Hiram go with his servants and his ships, but also with the servants of Solomon, right? Solomon, obviously, being from the tribe of Judah, right? Son of David, he had his servants as well. And they went to Ophir. Okay, so now Ophir, if you look at the Hebrew transliteration, means gold, but it is also considered a place, pretty much the land of gold, right? And took thence 450 talents of gold and brought them to King Solomon, right? And that's what these Hiram was doing. You know, he was servant. He was a master seafaring people, okay? Tyre and Sidon, okay? Which go back to Ham, which are the so-called Africans, okay? And they went with servants of Solomon to Ophir. And we could look up that word Ophir. And again, it is not only just means gold, but it's also a place, okay? And this place, we know it to be a land where no man had dwelt before, okay? But we'll get to that in a second. Ophir equals, let's go here to letter D, fine gold. There you go. Letter C, characteristics of fine gold, okay? And here in letter B, it talks about Southern Arabia, right? A trade route where gold evidently was traded for goods. And we know that to be a spiritual stumbling block, falsity, because in I believe it was in the 1 Kings 10 and 22. We'll go there in a second. We know it took them a year and a half to get to the land of Ophir. For them to receive gold, it took a year and a half to get to Ophir, the land of Ophir, the land of gold, and a year and a half to get back to Israel, to Solomon, making the sum total of 3 years and a half, okay? Something around that amount, and we'll get to that in a second. A land or city in Southern Arabia and Solomon's trade route, okay? So we know Southern Arabia, which is kind of around current time Saudi Arabia, around there. The Southern Arabian Peninsula, I think it's called, is real close to Israel, okay? So it did not take a year and a half to get to Israel from the Arabian Peninsula to Israel, okay? That is very, very obvious and falsity, okay? And we'll prove that here in a second. With the servants of Solomon to Ophir, and took thence 400 talents of gold and brought them to the king Solomon, right? So that's what Hiram was doing with his servants, along with the servants of Solomon. All right, let's go here to these were the servants. Let's prove first that the servants, which are the Tyre and Sidon, go back to Ham, right? All right, here we go here. Salakia for that. The sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan. Right? There you go. I think it was, and they go back to Ham. Okay, Mizraim, the transliteration from Mizraim, the Hebrew is Egypt. All right, which go back to Ham as well, which are the Egyptians, the house of bondage. Right, Cush, Mizraim, Phut, and Canaan. Right, but if you go down here to Genesis 10 and 15, and Canaan begot Sidon, his firstborn. There you go. Sidon, that was his firstborn. Therefore, you get the name of the cities of Tyre and Sidon, right? Making them Canaanites. And we can see it right here. And Canaan, let's see what the transliterations say about that. Canaan, Canaan, lowland, the fourth son of Ham, and the progenitor of the Phoenicians and of the various nations who people the seacoast of Palestine. Okay, the land west of the Jordan, people by the descendants of Canaan, and subsequently conquered by the Israelites under Joshua. Right, they were conquered by the Israelites. Right, once the Israelites, escaped by the hand of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, using Moses to Exodus Egypt, right, and to pretty much conquer the land where the Canaanites resided, and therefore later named it Israel, right? Jacob then later was named Israel, which is Yasharallah, which is the true ancient Hebrew for Israel. Yashar Allah. Yah meaning he, Shar meaning prince, and Allah meaning power. He is the prince of power. Okay? So there you have it. Canaan, merchant, traffickers, right? They were seafaring people, very knowledgeable, like we just got done reading at the beginning when it came to seafaring. Okay? They were the merchantmen of Solomon. They brought gold and silver from Ophir. Okay. Let's go here to First King. We could start at First Kings 10 and 11. And the navy also of Hiram that brought gold from Ophir. There you go. So, stating that Ophir was a place, right? Brought in from Ophir great plenty of almond trees and precious stones, right? There's a lot of resources in the land of Ophir, right? It's a very fertile land where no man had dwelt before. So there was an abundance amount of silver and gold, right? And historically, we know that it's talking about America. And we'll prove that here in a second, because nobody had inhabited America first yet. Okay, there's people that have been coming here, like we just got done reading, by the command of Solomon, right? The richest man that ever lived, and no one ever will be as rich and abundantly wealthy like Solomon, right? Because he was the son of David, okay? So we know that all that abundance was coming from this place called Ophir, right? Trees, precious stones, etc. Let's continue reading here. 1 Kings 10 and 12. And the king made of the almond trees pillars for the house of the Lord, and for the king's house harps also and psalteries for singers. There came no such almond trees, nor were seen unto this day. Right? And an abundant amount of resources were taken from the land of Ophir, which is so-called America. All right? And the first people traveling to the land of Ophir were Israelites, as well as the seafaring people from Tyre, right? Which go back to Ham. Okay. First to come and, explore the lands according to biblical scripture way before Christopher Columbus. Right. So it just doesn't justify saying the word black. The black people were the first people to discover America, okay? Because there have so many people, you just named a bunch of nations that have that genetic type. Now, if you use that word in the sense where you are trying to describe a genetic type, then you're going off, and that's why you see the confusion there is across the world right now, right? Because there's black Arabs, right? There's black East Indians, right? The real Indians, right? The East Indians, right? Because we know that Native Indians in America, that was a term, a byword that they use to cause further confusion, okay? Because that's what these damn devils do. They just use bywords to simplify and at the same time divide and confuse people, right? It doesn't justify saying just a color, okay? There were Hamites and Israelites visiting the land of Ophir, grabbing lots of resources from so-called America, right? Let's continue reading here. 1 Kings 10 and 12. And the king made of the almond trees pillars for the house of the Lord, and for the king's house harps. We just got done reading that. Salakia. All right. Let's go here to 1 Kings 10 and 14. Now the weight of the gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold. Okay, every year all this gold was coming here to King Solomon, right? And that's equivalent to 50,000 kilograms, right, of gold. That's a lot of gold. All right, let's go here to 1 Kings 10 and 22. For the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish, with also the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tyrus, bringing gold and silver, right? Once every 3 years. And there you go. Remember that number, because that's what it takes to get to the land of Ophir, the land where no man had dwelt before, right? But people were visiting there according to biblical scripture, as we just got done reading. Hiram, his servants, as well as the Israelites, as well as the servants of Solomon, right, were seafaring all the way to the land of Ophir, which is the land of gold, which is the land that no man had dwelt before, meaning inhabited before, right? People, the Israelites, along with the Hamites, were taking the resources, right? And it only makes sense why Solomon, with his wisdom and understanding of the whole world, was the most wealthiest, rich in abundance of everything, because he was, going to the land of Ophir, right? Let's continue reading here. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks. Okay. All right. So, this land of Ophir, as we just got done reading, it took 3 years, right? Once in 3 years came the ship, right? Where were they going? To the land of Ophir. And we could look this up real quick. In second book of Esdras, we know that the land of Ophir is speaking about Arsareth, right? So-called America. Okay. And we could see here in 2nd Esdras 13 and 40, it talks about the 10 lost tribes, right? From the nation of Israel, right? From the northern kingdom in specific, okay? The so-called Hispanic and Native Indigenous of the America, right? Okay, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their land in the time of Hosea, the king whom Salmanassar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, right? The king of Assyria, Salmanassar, led away captives, the northern kingdom, into captivity, right? They got captured, the northern kingdom, for being disobedient, not keeping law, statutes, and commandment. They were the first ones to go into captivity, okay, under the Assyrian Empire. Therefore, they got judged by Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, and then later on escaped, okay, into the land of Arsaris. Let's continue reading here. And he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land, all right? But they took this counsel amongst themselves, so that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. Okay, so this was a land where no man has ever dwelt before. Okay, and we know that the most recent landmass that ever was discovered was America. Okay, there's no discussion, no if buts about it. Okay. This is the new world, the new land, America, right? Where never mankind dwelt. Let's continue reading here. That they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land, right? Because Northern Kingdom was going off, right? Still going off to this day. Okay. Let's continue here. 2nd Ezra 13 and 43. And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. Right? If you look at the map, the Euphrates passage right through the river, that's where they went through and came to the land of so-called America, which is the land where no man had dwelt before, right? The northern kingdom got here, inhabited it first, right? Not discovered, but inhabited, all right? There's a difference, right? Let's continue here, 2nd Ezra 13 and 44. For the Most High then showed signs for them and had stilled the flood till they were passed over, right? That was a long way of a year and a half. We just got done reading the Hiram and his slaves, along with the slaves of Solomon, right? Were coming to the land of Ophir, the land of gold, the land of an abundance amount of resources, right? From peacocks to sycamore trees and so forth. Okay, so much abundance, right? And it took a whole year and a half, and they were using ships, because we just got done reading the ships of Hiram, the seafaring people, along with the Tarshish ships. Okay. Let's continue here. 2nd Ezra 13 and 45. For through that country, there was a great way to go. A great way to go. Okay. Namely of a year and a half. There you go again. We just got done reading in 1 Kings 10:22. It was a total of 3 years that King Solomon received his gold. Okay. Because it takes a year and a half to get to the land of Ophir and a year and a half to get back, right? And the same region is called Arsareth, right? And Arsareth in the Hebrew means a land that no man has ever dwelt, right? A land that no man had ever dwelt, non-inhabited, okay? That's what Arsareth is, and we could look that up real quick. But again, we just got done reading in 1 Kings 10:22, right? It took 3 years for Solomon to receive his gold from the ships of Tarshish and Hiram. Okay? We just got done reading that. right? First Kings, let's go there real quick. First Kings 10 and 22. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, here we go. For the king had a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy, right? Bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks, right? 3 years, because it took a year and a half to get to the land of Ophir. So-called America was the real biblical name back then, was called the land of Ophir, the land of gold. So much gold was retreated from here, from the Americas. And with the conquistadors later on coming in 1492, right? Christopher Columbus, Solomon been getting the abundance from the land of Ophir, from the land of Arsareth, right? We could look up that word Arsareth. Let's see here real quick. Hebrew meaning for Arsareth. Salaki for that. I spelled it right. Arsareth. Let's see what pops up real quick. Another land, or a distant land, right? Appears in 2nd Esdras, there you go, as the name. A remote region where the 10 lost tribes of Israel were said to have migrated, right? Because they went into captivity first for the Assyrian captivity, okay? And that's how they were the first to inhabit the land of Arsareth, okay? Let's see if I find another meaning for that word. Let's look at the AI. A distant land. And like we just got done reading in 2nd Esdras 13, where it says a place where no man had dwelt, right? That was another description of what Arsareth mean, right? The land where no man had dwelt. Okay? Because people were visiting, but nobody had dwelt there yet. Nobody had inhabited that land yet. Okay. There we go right here. This is, let's see, the AI overview. This passage describes the journey of the 10 tribes of Israel who were taken captive by the Assyrians. According to the text, these tribes decided to leave the multitude of the heathens of the nations and travel to a distant land where no human beings had ever lived. All right, no human beings had ever inhabited the land, right? They've been going there, Hiram and the servants of Solomon as well, grabbing all the resources, the gold and the silver, therefore making him the richest man to ever live, right? Full of an abundance, right? So that they might observe their laws, right? No human being had ever lived, okay? And this is how we know the so-called Hispanic and Native Indigenous, which is another stumbling block for people, these bywords that they use, and just to place a certain color type. But indigenous Northern Kingdom was always a variety mix of people, right? So it was not just what the world perceives as of indigenous, the what they call Native Indigenous, right? There was Negro Indigenous as well being on there. That's why when they came, there was Gadites that look like Negro Indigenous, all right? If that makes sense, if you could receive it in the spirit, okay? But those weren't the Jews, because the southern region of Israel are the Jews, right? But the whole nation, since people want to be so obsessed with the genetic type of people, I have to break it down in a simple, very simple fashion, right? There was a genetic type throughout the whole Israel, right? The Negro genetics, obviously, but there was other genetic types as well. And we could prove that, especially within the Northern Kingdom, because the Northern Kingdom has mixed himself with the people, right? Ephraim, the region of the Northern Kingdom, is also referred as Ephraim, right? Ephraim is a tribe within itself as well, just like Judah. But they also, to describe that whole region, they will call it Judah, the Southern Kingdom, which consists of Benjamin and Levi, right? But that whole region sometimes is described as Judah, just like the Northern Kingdom is described as Ephraim. All right, we could go there real quick. Again, those were the first to inhabit the land of Arsareth, where no human beings had ever lived, right? Like you see that there, right? The land of Ophir. Let's go here to, all right, so you can't let these bywords, this crayon colors, be a stumbling block, right? Because it doesn't get to the nitty gritty detail. And that's why people are so confused and confounded, right? Let's go here to, give me 1 second. Hosea 7 and 8, right? Ephraim, he had mixed himself among the people, right? Ephraim had mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned, right? And we just got done reading, Ephraim is a tribe as well of its own, but they are the nation of Israel. All right, Ephraim, right? Sometimes known as Joseph, right? Letter A, second son of Joseph, blessed by him and given preference over the first son, Manasseh. The tribe of Ephraim, right? Let's look at the letter D. Sometimes used name for the Northern Kingdom, sometimes used referring to the whole region of the Northern Kingdom, Ephraim, okay, which is also a tribe of his own, right, which consists of, all the Northern Kingdom tribes. If you don't know, pull up the 12 tribe chart and you'll see all the tribes there, right? Simeon, Issachar, Manasseh, Zebulun, Asher, Naphtali, and so forth, right? Gadite, but these tribes, they've been had different genetics, man. So, there has been a Negro genetic type already here, and that's a spiritual stumbling block for a lot of people, because again, these devils, they place their narratives and they place their confusion in people's heads to cause further division, right? They were all brothers, all right? They are all the same nation. They're the 12 lost tribes completely, because now completely the Southern Kingdom later on came, we know, through the transatlantic slave trade, right? From the west coast of Africa, right? They were living in Africa because they were exiled from the land of Judah, okay? That's why they were in Africa, right? All right, they were in the west coast of Africa because they were exiled, right? Because Judah got conquered, right? So they had to escape, just like the Northern Kingdom had escaped first, got to the land of Arsareth / land of Ophir, right? And it's no surprise they had the wisdom and understanding, Issachar, had understandings of astronomy. You got the ancient Mayans, historical archaeology proves that they had, a great understanding of astronomy, but that was all spiritual wisdom from Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, right? If Solomon been had it. The rest of the nations definitely had acquired it, right? So again, you know, Lord willing, this was edifying to the hopeful elect. Just trying to think if I pretty much touched the subjects that I wanted to touch. Again, yes, Northern Kingdom had inhabited the land of Ophir, which consists of the mixed Northern Kingdom people, right? Which been indigenous, been black indigenous, right? So people could have a different visuals because they only, when they hear one byword, they want to categorize only one genetic type, and that's just ridiculous, man. Okay? People have been mixing, right? Even since Solomon, he had, 700, 800 wives and 300 concubines from other nations, right? So people act like people just started mixing when they abolished slavery, so-called abolished it, right? But we know we're still in the captivity, right? Spiritually. So, no, there was all genetics types throughout the Americas already when they got here. All right. And particularly, obviously, more browns and black, right? So don't let these damn heathens, let them be a stumbling block for you by using simpleton-minded just bywords, right? That's why you got to study the Hebrew, the Greek, and the Latin, okay? To really get down to the nitty-gritty and see who these nation of people were, all right? They were from certain nations, right? You can't just throw a color out there because that's going to just cause further confusion, okay? So Lord willing, this was edifying to the hopeful elect. Before I go, I want to give all praises, all glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rahakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who are preaching and teaching this truth with humility and sincerity across the four corners of the world. These so-called NGROS, Hispanics, and Native Indigenous of the Americas, and the speckled bird that are amongst those other nations that look like those from those other nations,